Hello and welcome back to the third video in the 506 series. My name is Brent Warren, and I'm the Training Director for CMBD. So let's start task 2 by having a look at the word count and the different sections. So looking at that last screenshot, we can see that task 2 is divided into 4 sections. We've got 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4. We've got an overall word count allowance of 1200, so simple division, about 300 words for each section. The next thing we need to do, which you've probably gathered by now, is go to the assignment brief and see what specific instructions we've got for each of those 4 questions. The first thing to note is that we're being asked to write a good practice guide entitled The Role and Responsibilities of a Manager in Relationship to Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. The good practice guide will be used by other managers in the organisation. So we're going to write a guide for our colleagues. That's kind of the mindset I think that we need to take here. We've had a heading specified, so it makes a certain amount of sense to have subheadings. And if you look at the title of each of the 4 component parts, subheading number 1, analyse the roles, responsibilities, etc. Subheading 2, specify the language and behaviours required of a manager, etc. and so on and so forth. Our next port of call is the syllabus, and you should be getting used to this by now. For each of those 4 subsets of the question, we've got the indicative content. And we can see in the previous screenshot, for example, that for 2.1, role and responsibilities may include, but are not limited to, living by example, embodying organisational values, etc. And it's a question of looking through those, and again, as in previous questions, selecting the ones that fit kind of your examples and your experiences the best. It's not specified as to how many of those examples you should use, but at the end of the day you've got 300 words to play with, and we've got a command verb that says analyse, so remember to have a look at the command verb definitions and just remind yourself what analyse means. When we get to 2.2, we've got yet another command verb. We've got specify, and we've got a list of suggested languages and behaviours in the indicative content in the syllabus. When we get to 2.3, we've got another evaluate. You might recall that that's kind of the pros and cons and the different perspectives and drawing a conclusion. And then we've got in 2.4, assess approaches for managing individuals and teams, etc. Again, a number of approaches suggested in the indicative content. They've asked us to evaluate 2 leadership styles, so it probably makes sense to evaluate 2 or maybe 3 approaches that could be used. The guidance for completion of task 2 box in the assignment brief has a number of bullet pointed suggestions that you should also read and just kind of bear in mind. This should very much be written from a first person, your experiences, passing on your knowledge to your colleagues. So let's move on to the final part of the assignment, which in the assignment brief is called task 3, and confusingly in the syllabus is referred to as learning outcome 3 and learning outcome 4. Looking at the word count table, we've got 1900 words for this last part, so it's a substantial piece of work, and you can actually see on the table where learning outcome 3 is all about developing and implementing plans, and learning outcome number 4 is about how to monitor how successful those are and what the outcomes are. Stick with the AC numbers when you're looking at the indicative content in the syllabus, and you won't go too far wrong. So looking at the assignment brief, we can see that we're asked to write a report, and this report has section 1 and section 2, section 1 being learning outcome 3, section 2 being learning outcome 4. We're given the option of using a scenario, but obviously the easiest and best way to tackle this is to write about your own organisation or another organisation of which you have knowledge and experience. Once again, work out your word counts, check the indicative content in the syllabus and take each of the ACs one by one. We take AC 3.1, the plan may be presented as a standalone document. I would suggest that's what you do in this case. It may include but is not limited to policy and procedures, consultation process, time-bound targets, communication strategy, etc. 3.2 is all about the gathering of information to support and inform that plan. And again, in the syllabus, there's a number of suggestions as to where this information can be obtained from. Finally, in section 1, we've got recommend 2 approaches to implementing a plan. And guess what? In the syllabus, we've got approaches may include but are not limited to development of leadership workshops, establishing buy-in, policy and procedure, training and development, etc. So just take it stage by stage, work through the indicative content in the syllabus, and it should all come together reasonably well. The final part of the jigsaw is section 2 in the report, which looks at 2 methods for monitoring outcomes against targets and examining a minimum of 2 methods for reporting outcomes to staff and other stakeholders. And once again, in the syllabus, lots of suggestions that you can follow. The final thing to say about this last part of the assignment is also to bear in mind the guidance in the box for the completion of task 2 in the actual assignment brief itself. This is an area that lends itself to the use of the evidence booklet. Gathering supporting information, referring to that in the assignment can be a great way to save on your word count. So that's it. We're at the end of the tutorial videos for assignment 506. Obviously you will receive support from your tutor. There's no such thing as a daft question. If you get stuck anywhere or you need further clarification, don't hesitate to contact your tutor. So it just remains for me to say thank you for listening, and I hope you've found these useful.